Whether you're on the road, you're at home, maybe on vacation, or heading into storm season, you know you need insurance for just about everything. It can be hard to know whether you've got the right coverage. Christopher Cook with Alliance Insurance joins us to answer your insurance-related questions today. To get your questions answered, just send them in a text message form to the number on your screen, 336-379-5775. Mr. Cook, thank you so much for joining us today. The first question that I think is probably the most important is, what is the biggest misconception that you hear from people about insurance coverage?
I think the biggest misconception is that it's confusing, but that's maybe because that's what I've been doing for 20 some years, and it's gotten pretty simple to me. But it's not that complicated. But that's the statement I get the most often. Oh, I don't want to deal with insurance. It's so confusing. It's really not.
What would you say is the most complicated thing about figuring out your insurance policy?
You know, claims questions are certainly the most complicated issues that arise. There are what are called exclusions in a policy. There are some things that unfortunately we just can't insure against. Things like mechanical breakdown, whether that be of your car or your refrigerator or another system in the home. Mechanical breakdowns are typically not insured against, so that gets a little bit complicated. But other exclusions like flood and earthquake and some of those things, that does make it difficult to understand from time to time.
I'm glad you brought up flood. We all saw what happened in western North Carolina last week with just the devastating flooding from Tropical Storm Fred. I think a lot of people may be questioning their policy after seeing something like that. But if I remember correctly from years of you talking with us about flood insurance, is you can't assume that you have it.
Yeah, you really should assume that you do not. 99.9% of the homeowners in North Carolina do not have flood insurance as part of their homeowner's policy. Flood coverage is a separate contract in almost all the states in the U.S. And every year we have this conversation, whether the flood be in Greensboro or Asheboro or at the coast or in the mountains. Our homeowners policies do not have flood coverage. It was just a couple years ago that Sparta, North Carolina, towards the mountains, had an earthquake. Our homeowners policies do not have earthquake coverage either in most instances. So that is definitely something to dig into and review and make sure you can purchase those coverages. It's not difficult. You just have to make the choice to spend the money on the policy.
And I think that's probably what it comes down to for a lot of people. You know, you don't ever expect that your house is going to flood if you live in Greensboro, but sometimes it does. So how do you make that determination? You know, what's the risk versus reward here?
Sure. Only 25% of our state is in what's called a flood, high prone flood area, for lack of a better term. 75% of flood claims occur in non-flood zones. So everybody's at risk. The premiums for the vast majority of our state are under $500 a year. And I know $500 is a lot of money, but the damage that can be caused by a flood is just absolutely tremendous. And oftentimes we make the mistake of saying, well, no one's making me buy a flood insurance policy, so I'm not going to. And then ultimately, there's nowhere to turn when that damage has happened.
Let's talk about auto insurance for a moment. Are there any mistakes that you see people make when it comes to figuring out which plan to go with for their auto?
The biggest mistake that I see folks make is they try to cut the wrong coverages. Liability insurance, in my opinion, is the most important coverage on your policy. And liability insurance is, for lack of a better term, paycheck protection or savings account protection. I have a wreck, I hurt someone else, I am liable for their damages. And if I buy the cheapest liability insurance policy out there, I've saved about $15 a year to go from $30,000 of liability up to $100,000 of liability. And most of our homeowners now, we're recommending that they carry at least $500,000 of liability insurance. So trying to save money in the wrong places is the biggest mistake I feel like insureds make in our state.
Is there any place on the flip side of that? Where's the best place to save money? Is there a best place?
Sure. If you can afford it, if you have money in savings and you can raise your deductible for minor claims. So instead of carrying a $250 deductible, consider raising that to 500 or maybe even 1,000. That will lower your premium more, and possibly what I would call, what we reference, self-insuring against small claims, instead of turning in a $400 claim when you've got a $250 deductible. Maybe self-insuring that damage and paying for that repair yourself.
All right, some good advice. Christopher Cook, one segment down, one to go. Thank you for your time. We always appreciate it. We will be right back.